You've probably heard of people sizing each other up based on their clothes. But their meals? Believe it or not, what you ate in the 1970s spoke volumes about you. And if you're wondering which dishes made the biggest statements, I've got the top 75 right here. So we're going to start off nice and small with an eloquent classic that I'm sure you're all far too familiar with by now. Beans and toast is something that goes back to the deeply ingrained roots of any country. But that couldn't ring any more true for our dearly beloved United States. See, especially in the South, and especially in the 70s, if you had beans on toast instead of, let's say, hash browns and eggs or pancakes and maple syrup, you were giving away a few things. You were telling others that flour was short for you, that you couldn't afford to waste too much sugar, that you didn't have a lot of dairy to work with, and that you probably didn't make anything above an honest day's pay. Sound a bit too judgmental? I'd say modern society has stomped them in that field, but yeah, it's a dog's life. Beans and toast not only became a dead giveaway about someone's economic status, they also became a status symbol as a whole for the working class. You'll hear all sorts of laborers and field workers recounting days where they toiled away with only some pinto beans and toast fueling them. You know, I think we're all very used to seeing soy sauce on our shelves now, but where did the trend of pairing rice with soy sauce start from? If you take a deep look into the culture surrounding the 70s, you might be surprised to find more than one answer. Let's start with the obvious one, the ever-rising popularity of Asian culture. We'll say this was the oil. Then, let's move to the second one, which massively increased Asian immigration thanks to the Nationality Act in '65. We'll say this was the match. What you get is a wildfire of convenience foods and budget-friendly alternatives in a country that's slowly finding itself on the doorstep of a fast food-induced health crisis. Where do you think we go from there, keeping in mind our budget? Rice and soy sauce? Sounds good to me. Rice wasn't just something people relied on for food or sustenance, it became a friend in tough times. Despite that attachment to the grain, few people in America knew how to do anything out of the box with it. And when Asian immigrants came along, they didn't just bring their sauces, they brought their skills, and that's why we can make soy sauce 10 different ways today. Danish Go-Rounds and Danish rings were something that pretty much became the status quo of the average working-class American deep into the 70s. The idea here was to flood supermarkets and bakeries with these, making them as accessible as possible because, hey, you can't sell it if it's not easy to get, right? The next part was to make it a sugar rush. What do you think a population that's just been thrust back into the workforce needs the most when people find themselves coming back home? Something sweet. 9 times out of 10, that usually does the trick. The next trick was to mass produce and market it, and oh boy, did they live up to the definition of the word mass. Danish Go-Rounds were something that were introduced as a toaster pastry by brands like Kellogg's, initially being shown off as just a flaky pastry that had a lot of fruit fillings. It was supposed to give you the flavor of a Danish pastry but with all the ease of a Pop-Tart, and honestly, they may have marketed it too well. By the 80s, this was all people were buying for their lunch breaks. So, the next thing we have on our list is potato pancakes. This is as much of a godsend as soy sauce was, really. The thing about potatoes is you don't even know how useful they are until a situation comes knocking on your door and you find out potatoes are your only weapon. What was once a starchy present from Mother Earth that you could only associate with curly fries and vanilla milkshakes can actually be a world of flavor unto itself. A lot of common community cookbooks, recipes, and magazines prove that, but nothing showcases that better, in my opinion, than the humble potato pancake. This was not only a delicious alternative, but it was also a smart response to the rising difficulties that plagued the 20th century. A country on the brink of ruin, beaten and battered by several tragedies, beset by financial instability, shorter paychecks, and rising costs. Potatoes weren't just something you could buy for cheap and all that mess, they were something you could grow for free. In the 70s, basic farming knowledge still was something that people had. Potato pancakes were one of the ways people who had nothing to spare for breakfast managed one, and they could have done a lot worse. You know, One of the easiest things you could make for yourself back in those times was a nice, piping hot plate of macaroni with some butter and salt. The idea for most working-class homes or even middle-class homes back then was to save whatever they were earning and put it away for property. Despite having a job, or hell, even multiple, and despite both the mom and dad working, people were barely making their savings among the costs of everyday living, meaning that they still couldn't really afford any kind of spending for the sake of it. In times like that, comfort food would be hard to get. You would settle for things like beans and toast, but let's be honest, how is that making anyone's list of comfort food? I thought so. On the other hand, macaroni was the perfect thing. Chewy, munchable, perfectly easy to make, cheap, packed, and needs next to no prep work to make a whole thing out of it. I mean, you can't call spreading some butter and salt prep work, right? Even my niece could do that. Macaroni with some butter and salt was a pretty anxiety-free way to unwind with a comfortable meal as you watched your TV, preparing for the next shift. I bet the last thing you'll ever think of is somebody making apple pie out of Ritz crackers. The 1970s were full of surprises, and this dish is as creative as it is unusual. So, the mock apple pie basically was a dish that got popular in the Depression. People had no supplies to make any usual dessert with. What little they did have, they would conserve as much as they could. Still, on the odd occasion or two, people would feel the need for something sweet, and in times like those, Ritz crackers were a big help. Lots of people would actually crumble and layer the crackers together to mimic the texture and feel of apple slices. As for the taste, a dense mix of cinnamon, sugar, and water along with cream of tartar would have to be boiled. Imagine the stuff you can do with so little. I don't find any use for sugar outside of my morning coffee, really. It doesn't end there, though. Last comes some lemon juice and spices, which really add to the bit here, giving it a fruity vibe. The rest is just your typical pie baking, but it's insane that people were able to make mock recipes that actually came so close to the real thing. While no one really remembers it today, it's a testament to America's skill in the kitchen. Now, if you're dealing with imitating a whole fruit pie, you might need some actual experience in the kitchen. Potted meat sandwiches, on the other hand, were something even your kid could make. It's about as complicated as a peanut butter sandwich, really. See, we're so used to them now, but cans in general were a marvel. They were a way to get massive amounts of food out to people that was easy to carry and lasted long. Potted meat was a part of that in the 70s. It was this really heavily processed meat that came for pretty cheap in a can. Think stuff like Libby's or Underwood. Once you had a can of this, all you needed was your favorite sauce, toppings if you had any, and 2 slices of bread. You could even have this cold, really. The thing about recipes like mock apple pies is that they're kind of restricted entirely to people with access to an oven. For a lot of the working class, that just wasn't happening. Potted meat was something anyone could enjoy, regardless of what they had in the kitchen. All you needed was the can and bread. Hey, if you had some sausage bits, bacon, olives, or anything at all to spare, even better. In places like the South, not only was it perfect for lunch for school kids, giving parents an accessible and affordable everyday option, but it was also something that the parents themselves relied on. Loads of factory and construction workers would often rely on sandwiches like these to get by during the long days. It became a real thing in the South, since potted meat was already a massive thing back there already. Hamburger gravy was an affordable way to make a makeshift sandwich for yourself, and throw in some cheap protein on the side too. First, you had to brown the beef in a skillet, and people would often throw in whatever vegetables they had in order to spice up the flavor here. Next, a roux was necessary. So this one was actually something people made by adding flour to the beef drippings. But if you try this recipe today, you'll find yourself surprised at just how good and easy it is. Whether it was school luches or taking a bulks to work so that you don't have to spend extra on food, hamburger gravy was a massive godsend for a lot of people. So a lot of people back then relied on all sorts of spreads to pass mealtime and hopefully not go home or go to sleep hungry. Among those, we had Cougall. This peanut butter sandwich spread was first invented and introduced by Kraft in 1971, and man, ever since then, it's been hard to find a replacement peanut butter that's as practical as this one. However, here, Cougall has a catch. I may have made it seem like being a peanut butter spread is all this thing has going for it, but that couldn't be further from the truth. See, it had flavors like cinnamon, banana, vanilla, and chocolate too. The whole thing was really geared towards kids, and I mean, that doesn't mean adults couldn't enjoy it. They definitely did it. Those commercials and the marketing were always geared towards children. But hey, that's what people say about cup noodles, and I think my inner child could use a Cougall sandwich today. So, the next thing we have on the list is Hunt's Snack Pack Pudding. This was something that people came up with in the 1960s, and slowly it became a staple of lunchboxes for kids who were born into working-class families. Most construction and factory jobs paid enough to keep the lights on, but beyond that, you couldn't really expect anything extravagant. Working-class homes back then didn't have any kind of refrigeration, and the ones that were living away from urban centers and hubs like New York had it even rough. At least those people had everything they needed a few streets away from them. In times like those, snack pack puddings were divine intervention, or they may as well have been. The appeal for children was insane. It was convenient, it was affordable, and the flavors were all classics like vanilla. It tasted an awful lot like mom's own homemade pudding, which just made the whole thing come full circle as an affordable comfort food you could rely on. Yep. Country Captain was a dish that came right out of the South of America in the 1970s. In specific, I'm referring to Savannah and Charleston. It didn't stay in either of its hometowns, though, because soon this curry was going to take the entire South and nation by storm. It wasn't common to have subcontinental food and concepts yet, really. I mean, we had shawarmas, delis, and the odd dish that went naan, but it wasn't anywhere near to being an everyday fact of life like it is today, or even just a national interest. This tomato-based curry sauce proved that making a curry doesn't have to be a hard endeavor, just an incredibly tasty dinner. The advent of canned tomatoes is what I think really helped here. People had the rest laying around. All you needed were warm spices, onions, bell peppers, and some curry powder. But it was the canned tomatoes that were the star of the show. Country Captain doesn't just have a history with families who are down on their luck, it's also something commonly served in mess halls for the military. It's been overtaken by 100 different curries today, but no one can forget the times when the Country Captain used to be a name you got happy to hear. Where do we really start with canned ravioli? The traditional stuff was a no-go for people for the longest of times because there was just a skill barrier and flour wasn't available to anyone, certainly not most of the country. That's just how the Depression era was. A lot of the country was living well below their usual financial capacities. In times like that, even among canned food, ravioli stood out. Part of that was because Chef Boyardee, the company behind it, made such a good version. It even had a kid-friendly appeal, which goes a pretty long way. America in the 1970s was very pro-kids, all unplanned, mind you. Here, you would just throw in bits of meat filled into the pasta and a tomato sauce, and the rest was just a matter of heating it. You could eat it cold, you could also eat it with stale bread, something most people did so that the bread wouldn't go to waste, and that the meal would become a bit more filling. Really though, taking out the skill factor from this is what made it the national staple it is today. Once you make something accessible enough for everyone, it becomes something everyone sees a point in buying. I don't know about you, but I know I've had my fair share of pennies on some canned ravioli. Have you ever eaten pork neck bones? Have you ever eaten parts of the animal that were different from what you typically get served in steakhouses and butcher's shops? I bet not. I haven't either. It's just not common. You get different cuts of meat for different purposes, and all of them are aiming to be the best cut on the market that day. Animals get farmed in specific ways for this exact purpose. I mean, what do you think Wagyu is? Despite all that, there was a time when the working class in America only had pork neck bones to rely on. This trend of eating the less desirable, tougher parts of an animal came from two things: financial doom and a waste-nothing mentality. Put those together and your list of lunch options starts expanding by miles and miles. Pork neck bones were cheap, easily available, and never something that would be out of stock. It was also something that cattle-raising families were used to already, but the rest of the country caught on quick with their pork neck bone broths and stews. I don't need to tell you about grits with cheese. We all know about grits with cheese. What you may not know is that this pretty much used to be the lifeblood of so many folks back in the deepest pits of the 70s. See, the highs of the 70s are definitely something to look back on fondly, even reminisce about. A cultural revamp. New artists are pushing boundaries in music. Advancements in tech and infrastructure that were slowly changing life in general. The internet wasn't that far away either. What people don't talk about is that on the flip side of this, there were families that were living off of just grits, and if they could spare some, cheese. The cheddar was one of the most common ingredients to put in grits. Processed cheese like Velveeta was something people used back then, but the idea was to basically just enhance the flavor along with some butter and salt. It would make for a decent breakfast. It was versatile, and it was already a tradition in the South. The country had just re-entered the workforce as some semblance of stability was finally achieved. It took a long while for things to truly settle down across the country. Egg drop soup is something we're so comfortable with now. I mean, it's something you literally can never escape as soon as you step out into the street. God forbid you go to any Chinatown, really. This simple and incredibly satisfying dish was something that actually found its footing right in the heart of the 70s in America. As a nation, our interest in foods beyond our shores was increasing. Scandinavian, Swedish, European, Japanese, Chinese, Taiwanese, you name it, we were trying it. Of course, one of the first places we ever went to was just China. They had so much food that was literally perfect for takeout culture. Egg drop soup was one of those, and it was just a simple broth base that had a bit of seasoning. Stuff like soy sauce, white pepper, and sesame oil. Then beaten eggs would be thrown in and make these super artistic-looking strands. Next, you would just thicken it, and you would have a soup perfect for conquering winter and restoring some spirit in you in like 5 minutes and $1. Pretty neat, right? This became something that was recognized the most out of Chinese-American culture, and something that definitely had the potential to go mainstream, as it eventually did by 2025. Vienna sausages, on the other hand, were these really small canned sausages that would consist almost entirely of ground meat. The catch here was that this meat was finer than anything you had ever seen. It was a pantry item that was as common as salt in the 70s because of the dire need for these sausages in just about every situation. Kid about to go off to school? Husband off to work? Tired wife wants to make a sandwich for herself? There really wasn't any inconvenience at home that Vienna sausages weren't fit to handle. Plus, they had the benefit of being ready-made. You could literally eat these cold and right out of the can. And don't get me wrong, a bunch of people definitely did. You could fry it or heat it too, or you could just serve it with some bread and crackers. Hey, get a hot dog bun and you have yourself some proper street food. The reason these got popular was because of their insane appeal to everyone in most situations. Like I said, there was rarely a time when a Vienna sausage would not fix whatever food-related issue you were having. You know how the saying goes. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but often better than a master of one. So this isn't really in the same rank as the neck bones of pork, but fried chicken livers were a really inexpensive way to have protein in the 70s. It caught on quicker than you would think, especially in rural America. Organ meats actually used to be a staple of everyday American diets, but that trend fell out of style during the middle of the 20th century. Fried chicken livers, on the other hand, were something that stood the test of time. A part of this, people say, is because of the versatility of the chicken livers and variety on menus. You could season these with basic spices or entire blends and rubs. You could marinate it, bread it, deep fry it, boil it, roast it, or grill it. Lots of home cooks even had their own little regional tricks they would swear by. Stuff like soaking it in milk or salt water so that the iron-heavy flavor of the chicken liver would go down. Whatever they did, people would just enjoy the fact that this was cheap, easy to make, and really good to eat. Powdered mashed potatoes were even better. They were the star of the entire show. The show, by the way, is the rise and takeover of convenience food. What was it taking over? Grocery store chains across the country? Pantries across every neighborhood you've ever lived in? Entire city blocks and urban centers are becoming reliant on cans of processed foods. At the very top of all that, you had powdered mashed potatoes. These were actually something that were originally developed with nothing but practicality in mind. It makes sense when you realize they were made for military rations and people who were the target of food aid programs. They became a staple later on after the formula was adopted by a couple of companies like Idahoan, Betty Crocker, and Hungry Jack. Let's be real, potatoes are wonderful, but we all only love the end product. The peeling, the boiling, the shaping, all of that? No one likes it. It's long, it's annoying, and it makes your hands the wrong kind of sticky. This though, these instant mashed potatoes you just had to rehydrate with some water and milk, season according to your taste, and then throw in whatever add-ons you wanted. Whether that was cheese, sour cream, canned vegetables, or something more, that was up to you. Either way, this was the quickest and easiest way to have potatoes in all of history at the time of its inception, and people definitely took all the advantage they could out of it. Shepherd's pie, or at one point also known as cottage pie when it would be made with beef, was a way for working-class homes to not let a single thing go to waste. Hey, if they can eat neck bones in the name of reducing wastage, shepherd's pie is a stone's throw away from that, really. A lot of the time in these homes, the dinners or lunches that would be cooked would be one-pot meals. Large stews, broths, casseroles, meatloafs, pastas, things like that. Whatever they could afford had to be made with care and caution. You couldn't use too much. At the same time, you also had to feed like 4 or 5 hungry mouths, at least 3 of them being under 14. That meant that home chefs had a bad case of leftovers and were frequently dealing with what to do with food from yesterday that was about to spoil. This shepherd's pie was one of the most common ways for people to repurpose yesterday's dinner. The leftover meat would work as the base, and any kind of roast beef, meatloaf, or ground beef would work. Next, people would throw in vegetables and gravy, top it with some mashed potatoes, and bake it until it was just the right color. Lots of people would just eat it right out of the pan, but either way, this was a great idea to make sure nothing at all went to waste, and you got all your money's worth for your groceries. Let me introduce you to one of the all-time greats. We've heard its name before, but today we're going for its origin story. Oatmeal has been one of the top dogs of the breakfast game for arguably centuries, and it'll be here long after you and I and everyone we know are gone, friend. Think of them like the Kobe Bryant of breakfast. On top of this, we had lots of brands that were really just too good at what they did. Quaker Oats is one of them. This was the leading oatmeal brand, and it was best known for its quick oats and old-fashioned oats. You have to understand what coming up with this means for people. We live in a post-oatmeal world, so we can't really appreciate it, but never before was nutrition, protein, and affordability so neatly packaged into one little thing. Then you had Mother's Oats, which, despite eventually being absorbed later on by Quaker, was a pretty neat competitor. You also had Meal Oatmeal and so many other brands trying to win the top dog position. Of course, that was amazing for the consumer, but nowadays, eating oatmeal just means you're taking care of your health. Back then, it meant you were poor and couldn't go to a diner for a proper American breakfast, despite oats being older than sentiments like that in American culture. Man, I'm telling you, people weren't living too good before oatmeal became a nationwide thing. I mean, they were, but the best they had to go for was cornmeal porridge. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely some die-hard fans of this stuff. Lots of people prefer it over your typical bowl of oatmeal. Personally, I could never vibe too well with that, but you let me know how you feel about the porridge versus oatmeal debate in the comments down below. Back to the video though, cornmeal and corn in general have long been a staple of the food of the working class. It's been something that people have been abusing maliciously since the times of the first colonial settlers, and it'll be that way for a long while into the future too. Corn's just that good. More so, it's just that easy to grow. That's why it was such a staple. In communities of every kind, and in America, mind you, there are more ethnic groups than there are states. This cornmeal porridge excelled. African American neighborhoods, Caribbean families, and Southern homes alike would love simmering cornmeal on some fire, mixing it with water and milk. That thickened porridge at the end was all a man could want at the end of the day. For me, I like my porridge a bit less corny, but everyone's got their own tastes. It is worth mentioning that it's because corn was so strongly associated with farming, farm work, farmsteads, and just the general lifestyles of day-to-day laborers in rural areas that the rich upper middle class, and even just the middle class in cities, always thought of it as a sign of someone being down on their luck financially. Fish head soup is definitely a name that raises some eyebrows, and for good reason. Yes, this does actually include actual fish heads, and this traditional dish is both budget-friendly and rich with flavor. The idea to use heads of fish like cod or salmon was basically because these were the typical catches of the day. You had things like catfish and snappers too, but you had an infinitely better shot of catching some cod than you did of anything else, really. Now, what was the logic here? Have you ever heard of people using animal fat for flavor? Bacon grease or lard? It's kind of the same concept. Fish heads end up significantly improving the flavor of the dishes they're in, or in this case, the soups, because they have the right amounts of the right stuff. They have a really dense concentration of fat and also a lot of oils in the cheeks and eyes. The collagen has a nice umami taste, and it works exceptionally well in broths and stews. All of that together helps to keep the meat in the soup tender while making sure every spoonful is twice as flavorful as it would be otherwise. Hey, it's icky, but it's something. Like I said, one of the most popular things to get were meatloaves with crackers, and there was a reason for that. It was just the typical food of the country, the same way you go to China and get chop suey, or you go to Pakistan and get biryani, you get meatloaf in America. Lots of families had typically been raised to perfect their meatloaf, with recipes being handed down across generations of families, wives, home chefs, and guardians. I make it sound like some medieval treasure being passed down the aristocracy, but it was really just a dish that you for sure knew you could rely on. Whether you were having a rainy day, a good one, or something in between, there was rarely an occasion a meatloaf couldn't be tweaked for. Plus, like I was talking about earlier, most families were sizable. Today we have a 50% divorce rate, pre-planned parenthood, and families that are settling for going childless, adopting, or keeping it to just 1 or 2 kids. Back then, the opposite really was true, and the budget for that wasn't nearly enough. People couldn't afford individual meals for everyone, but a meatloaf could serve everybody. People would often top it with Ritz crackers before baking it for a really nice and crispy exterior, or just crumble the crackers and throw them on there anyway. It was a nice little adornment to a dish that had otherwise been overdone to the moon and back. Pickle sandwiches are the same deal. They're just something we're all too used to, and that wasn't truer than it was in the 70s. Now, pickle sandwiches have definitely fallen out of style lately. I mean, we just have too many more options. Plus, people are more interested in making flashy dishes for social media than keeping it minimal and simple. Although, see, the difference between a pickle sandwich today is the kind of meanings you attach to it. Today, people would think it's healthy, or as if you're on a diet. Back then, it was just a giveaway that you were working for bad pay at a bad job, or maybe it was a good job, but the pay wouldn't be enough either way. Meals like these were seen as ration food, and the people that were eating them immediately were seen as strugglers from lower-class communities. If you were bringing a pickle sandwich to work every day, on top of your job already being pretty intensive labor-wise, people only had one conclusion to draw from that, and that was that you were probably poor. Pickle jars were just a few cents, and they would last an incredible amount of time, so it makes sense why it became such a common lunch for people who were struggling, but I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that's a sign of poverty, though I'm sure people did take it that way in the 70s. I mean, what's next? Someone calling you broke for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? See how stupid that sounds? What if you just really like pickles? Hot water cornbread was essentially just this southern classic that became really popular among communities like the ones we were just talking about. All you had to do here was mix cornmeal dough, which was made by combining the cornmeal with a lot of hot water and then boiling it. Next, some salt to create a really thick and firm batter. If you could spare some brown sugar or white sugar, that would be even better. After that was done, all you had to do was mix the dough and shape it into patties and cakes that were often just the size of a pancake. They were fried in hot oil or lard, usually for additional flavor, and then served as a snack. Hot water cornbread was something people would typically either eat with vegetables like collard greens or fried chicken, but whatever they'd have it with, it was delicious. While again, corn-based dishes and breads were always seen as a sign of a low-income home, that doesn't mean people didn't make some really rich memories with. Speaking of strange meals, wait till you hear about hog maw. Now, this is a dish that's sure to impress your dinner guests. It's basically a pig's stomach stuffed with, well, who knows? Probably whatever was lying around. When you think of luxurious foods, a pig's stomach is probably the last thing that comes to mind. But back when wallets were tight, people had to make do with whatever they could find. It was found in American, soul food, Chinese, Mexican, Portuguese, Italian, and Vietnamese dishes. Hog maw was especially popular in Pennsylvania Dutch country, where nothing went to waste. Now, hog maw might sound a little fear factor-ish, but it was actually a way to stretch ingredients and make a filling meal for the whole family. It's like the ultimate meatloaf, if meatloaf came with an organ-based casing. These days, the idea of eating a pig's stomach might turn some people off, but back in the day, it was just another way to enjoy a meal. Creamed spinach in school cafeterias combines nutritional value with palatable presentation, making it a favored vegetable dish among students. The preparation starts with fresh or frozen spinach, which is thoroughly washed and then cooked down until it wilts. A creamy sauce made from a blend of milk, flour, and butter is prepared separately, seasoned with a hint of nutmeg or garlic to enrich the flavor profile. The spinach is then incorporated into the sauce, which gently coats the leaves, creating a smooth and appealing texture. This dish not only adds a vibrant color to the plate, but also increases the intake of greens in students' diets, providing essential nutrients like iron, vitamin A, and calcium. The combination of creamy texture and mild flavors often helps to introduce and encourage a preference for vegetables among younger children, supporting school nutrition programs in their goal to foster healthier eating habits. Introduced during the 1970s in the American broccoli casserole became a beloved dish that cleverly combined the need for convenience with the desire for flavorful meals. This casserole mixes chopped cooked ham and broccoli with a rich cheese sauce, often made creamier with the addition of a condensed soup, which is then topped with breadcrumbs or crushed crackers for texture and baked until golden. This dish exemplifies the era's ingenuity in using readily available, often pre-processed ingredients to create a dish that could serve as a one-pot meal, reducing both preparation time and cleanup. It became particularly favored for its versatility, allowing variations such as substituting chicken for ham or adding different vegetables, thus catering to a range of palates and pantry contents. The casserole's popularity surged as it appeared in magazine spreads and cooking shows, often recommended for its ability to double as a dish suitable for both weeknight family dinners and social gatherings. Oysters Rockefeller consists of succulent oysters on the half shell, topped with a rich buttery mixture of finely chopped herbs and breadcrumbs, then baked or broiled until golden. Originating in 1899 at Antoine's in New Orleans, one of America's historic restaurants, the dish's exact recipe remains a secret but typically includes spinach, celery, and sometimes an anise-flavored liqueur, creating a luxurious topping. The oysters are gently poached in their shells to retain moisture, then crowned with this seasoned blend. After assembling, they are broiled until the topping bubbles and browns slightly, offering a delightful contrast in textures between the creamy, tender oyster and the crisp, flavorful topping. Oysters Rockefeller is not only a treat for the palate, but also a creative celebration of local ingredients, elevating the simple oyster to a decadent culinary experience. Tripe is the edible stomach lining of cows, and it's one of those ingredients that makes you go, "Really?" But in many cultures, tripe was a beloved dish, often cooked in soups and stews. Here's the thing. These poverty foods weren't just about using the cheapest ingredients available. They were about resourcefulness and respecting the entire animal. People found ways to use every part, from the meat to the organs and even the stomach lining, turning what others might discard into nourishing meals. Now, as for tripe, it has a unique texture that's chewy but tender, and it soaks up flavors beautifully. Back in the day, it was a cheap way to add protein to a meal, especially when times were tough. It's the kind of dish that takes some getting used to, both in terms of taste and texture. Today, tripe is more likely to be found in ethnic cuisine than on the average American dinner table. It's one of those foods that hasn't quite stood the test of time, but it still has a loyal following among those who appreciate its unique qualities. Fried chicken patties were introduced to American schools in the 1980s and quickly became a favorite due to their similarity to popular fast food. These patties are made from ground chicken mixed with spices, then breaded with flour and breadcrumbs to create a crispy outer layer. The frying process transforms these prepared patties into golden, crunchy delights with a juicy interior, typically served as sandwiches or with sides like fries. The method of preparing these patties is well suited to the high-volume requirements of school cafeterias, involving simple steps that can be executed quickly: mixing, forming, breading, and frying. This efficiency ensures that delicious hot meals can be served promptly, reducing wait times and maximizing student satisfaction during lunch breaks. The taco salad, which emerged as a popular dish in American cuisine in the 1960s, is a notable example of Tex-Mex culinary fusion. The typical taco salad starts with a crunchy tortilla bowl filled with lettuce, seasoned ground beef, shredded cheese, diced tomatoes, and black olives, finished with dollops of sour cream and salsa. This dish illustrates the adaptability of Mexican cuisine to American tastes, incorporating more cheese and sour cream than traditional Mexican salads. Taco salads became particularly popular in the 1980s, often served at gatherings and potlucks due to their customizable nature, which allowed guests to tailor the toppings to their preferences. Taco salad's popularity also coincided with a growing interest in more casual dining experiences at home, where families and friends could interact in more relaxed settings. Crown roast of lamb is an exquisite dish often reserved for special occasions and holiday feasts. This majestic preparation involves arranging racks of lamb into a circular shape that resembles a crown, with ribs pointing skyward. It's seasoned with a mix of rosemary, garlic, and thyme, both in the marinade and as a rub applied before roasting. To enhance its flavor and retain moisture, the crown center is typically filled with a stuffing composed of breadcrumbs, minced garlic, herbs, and occasionally dried fruits like apricots or cranberries. The lamb is roasted until it achieves a tender texture and a beautifully browned exterior. Precision in tying the racks together ensures the roast cooks evenly. To perfect its presentation, chefs often cover the tips of the ribs with foil during roasting to prevent charring. This dish not only dazzles as a culinary delight, but also stands as a festive centerpiece, symbolizing celebration and feasting. Hoppin John is a southern classic made with black-eyed peas, rice, and pork, often flavored with onions, garlic, and spices. This dish was traditionally eaten on New Year's Day for good luck and prosperity, with the peas representing coins and the greens often served alongside representing dollars. Some recipes use ham hock, fatback, country sausage, or smoked turkey parts instead of bacon. A few use green peppers or vinegar and spices. Hoppin John was a hearty, comforting dish that's perfect for feeding a crowd on a budget. It was a one-pot wonder that brings together simple ingredients in a delicious way. However, despite its tasty credentials, Hoppin John hasn't quite made it to the top of the culinary charts. It's a dish steeped in tradition, but not one that has a big presence in today's trendy food scene. That said, it's still a beloved dish in the South and a tasty way to start the new year. Sloppy Joes have been a staple in American school cafeterias since their introduction in the mid-20th century. This dish features ground beef or pork that is sautéed with onions and garlic until browned, then simmered in a savory tomato-based sauce seasoned with Worcestershire sauce and other spices. The thick, hearty mixture is then spooned onto soft hamburger buns, creating a filling and flavorful sandwich that is both messy and delightful to eat. The preparation requires minimal kitchen equipment and ingredients that are staples in most school pantries, making it a cost-effective choice for feeding a large number of students. Moreover, the ability to prepare the meat mixture ahead of time and quickly assemble the sandwiches during busy lunch periods enhances its practicality. The familiarity of the flavors, combined with the satisfying nature of the sandwich, ensures that Sloppy Joes remain a cherished option within school meal programs. Lunchables were launched in 1988 by Oscar Mayer, a brand owned by Kraft Foods, aimed at simplifying school lunch preparation for busy parents while appealing to children with fun, customizable options. Originally conceived during a company brainstorming session, the idea was to create a product that could use the brand's existing meat products in a novel way. The initial Lunchables kit featured crackers, processed cheese, and sliced meats, and could be assembled into miniature sandwiches, mimicking the action of building with blocks, which resonated well with children. Over the years, Lunchables expanded to include various themes like pizzas and tacos. The marketing campaigns for Lunchables focused heavily on fun and convenience, successfully capturing the interest of both parents and children. The packaging also evolved from simple plastic trays to more vibrant and engaging designs that featured games and trivia, enhancing the appeal. These kits not only changed the way food is packaged, but also influenced children's lunch habits by providing a fun and interactive way to enjoy their midday meal. Beef Bourguignon is a cornerstone from Burgundy, involving marinated and slow-cooked beef chunks, typically tougher cuts like chuck, bathed in red wine, usually Burgundy, to tenderize the meat over several hours. This hearty stew is fortified with onions, garlic, and carrots, and enhanced with sautéed mushrooms and crisp lardons. Historically, this method likely evolved as a means to tenderize and enrich less desirable cuts of meat. The stew develops a rich, deep umami flavor from the Maillard reaction, which occurs as the beef browns, and the complex flavors intensify as the wine slowly melds with the herbs and vegetables. The slow cooking process not only enriches the stew's flavor, but also fills the kitchen with an inviting aromatic warmth, making beef bourguignon synonymous with comforting, rich French culinary tradition. Scrapple was the typical everything but the oink dish. This Pennsylvania Dutch classic was made from pork scraps. Yes, that includes everything from the snout to the tail, combined with cornmeal and flour, then formed into a loaf. It is also known by the Pennsylvania Dutch name panhaas. Scrapples and panhaas were commonly considered ethnic foods of the Pennsylvania Dutch, including the Mennonites and Amish. Scraps of meat left over from butchering not otherwise used or sold were made into scrapples to avoid waste. It's like your grandma's meatloaf with a whole lot more mystery meat. Scrapple had a love it or hate it reputation. For some, it was a comfort food that reminded them of home. For others, it was a mysterious meat block they'd rather avoid. It's definitely an acquired taste, one that has not quite made it to mainstream breakfast menus. And don't even get me started on the texture. I'll leave a little to your imagination. Tater tots were born out of innovation in 1953 by the founders of Ida Golden and Francis Neefy Grigg. Utilizing leftover potato scraps from their French fry production, they created a new snack by chopping these remnants finely, mixing them with flour and seasonings, and forming them into small cylinders before deep frying them to a golden crisp. This process not only provided an efficient solution to food waste, but also produced a snack that was perfectly crispy on the outside while remaining fluffy inside. Tater tots are particularly popular as a side dish, but can also feature in recipes like casseroles, making them a versatile component of school lunches. The method of preparing tater tots involves deep frying, which, while requiring careful temperature control to achieve the perfect crunch without burning, fits well within the capabilities of large kitchen operations in schools. Ham and cheese quiche, which gained prominence in American kitchens in the 1970s, is a refined yet simple dish, originating from French cuisine but fully embraced by American bakers. This savory pie combines a flaky pastry crust with a luscious filling of eggs, cream, diced ham, and shredded cheese, often Swiss or cheddar for extra flavor. The quiche is baked until the egg mixture sets into a creamy custard, perfect for slicing. It became popular not just for its delicious taste, but for its adaptability to various dining occasions, from brunches to dinner parties. The dish's versatility extends to the kitchen, where variations might include different types of meat, vegetables, or cheeses, depending on the cook's preference or the ingredients on hand. Moreover, the preparation of quiche contributed to its status as a dish that could be dressed up for guests or scaled down for a simple family meal. Galantine of chicken is a testament to the elaborate artistry of classical French cuisine, popularized in the 17th century. It involves a meticulous process where a whole chicken is deboned and stuffed with a seasoned mix of ground meat, fats, and spices, including luxurious touches like pistachios and truffles. The chicken is then encased back within its skin, poached in a flavorful stock and set to cool, often in the gelatin-rich cooking liquid, to form a jelly. Decorated with artistic slices of vegetables, herbs, or edible flowers and coated in a glistening aspic, Galantine is served cold, making it a striking centerpiece for buffets and banquets. This dish not only showcases the culinary craftsmanship of detailed butchery and seasoning, but also the aesthetic presentation. Cracklins, on the other hand, I can get behind. They're basically pork rinds, but with a fancy name. Finally, a normal, delicious meal that doesn't make your nose wrinkle. Cracklins were essentially the popcorn of the pork world. These crispy, crunchy bits were made from frying pieces of pork fat and skin until they puff up and become irresistible little nuggets. In the days when every part of the pig was used, cracklins were a way to make a snack out of what would otherwise be discarded. But here's the catch. These didn't really have a lot of benefits when you ate them. Yeah, nothing really screams healthy about eating deep-fried pieces of pork. Think of them as the porky cousin of potato chips. These days, you're more likely to find them in specialty southern stores than on your local supermarket shelf. Cracklins may not be the healthiest choice, but they're a tasty reminder of a time when people knew how to make the most of what they had. Powdered milk in school cafeterias serves as a practical alternative to fresh milk, particularly valued for its extended shelf life and lower cost. This dehydrated dairy product is reconstituted by adding water. Powdered milk is often used not only as a beverage, but also as an ingredient in various recipes, from baked goods to mashed potatoes, enhancing their calcium and protein content. Although it may lack some of the flavor nuances of fresh milk, it remains an important nutritional component, offering essential nutrients such as vitamins D and A. The use of powdered milk in schools is driven by logistical advantages. It requires no refrigeration and can be stored for long periods, making it ideal for large-scale food service operations where efficiency and cost-effectiveness are priorities. Its inclusion in school meal programs ensures that students receive sufficient daily dairy intake, supporting their overall health and development within the constraints of school budgets. Introduced during the late 1980s as American interest in Asian cuisine surged, pineapple ginger chicken stir-fry represents a fusion that captures the essence of both American and Asian tastes. This dish combines juicy, sautéed chicken pieces with sharp ginger and sweet pineapple, delivering a dish that bursts with contrasting flavors. The addition of bell peppers and onions adds a crunchy texture, enhancing the overall sensory experience. The use of ginger, not only for its flavor but also for its reputed health benefits, coincided with a growing American fascination with healthier eating options. It exemplifies how global ingredients were becoming more accessible in local supermarkets, enabling home cooks to explore international recipes with ease. Chicken Marengo holds a storied place in culinary history, famously prepared for Napoleon after the Battle of Marengo. This dish encapsulates the essence of victorious improvisation using local ingredients available at the time. Chicken Marengo starts with chicken pieces sautéed in olive oil, braised with onions, garlic, and tomatoes, enriched by a splash of white wine that deglazes the pan, forming a robust sauce. Later additions often include mushrooms, and traditionally, it was garnished with fried eggs and crayfish, though these are less common today. The slow simmering melds all the flavors beautifully, allowing the tomatoes to break down and create a rich, savory sauce that complements the tender chicken perfectly. This dish exemplifies French provincial cooking, utilizing straightforward techniques and local ingredients to produce a dish rich in history and flavor. Another item on this list is head cheese. Don't let the name fool you. There's no cheese in head cheese. Instead, it's a terrine or meat jelly made from the flesh of a pig or calf's head. Sounds appetizing, right? Variations of head cheese exist throughout Europe and elsewhere, with differences in preparation and ingredients. A version pickled with vinegar is known as sauce. Head cheese was a way to use every part of the animal, especially during times when food was scarce. It's a dish that's rich in flavor and history, but not exactly a crowd pleaser in modern times. While you might still find it in some specialty delis, it's not the kind of thing you'd bring to a potluck without a disclaimer. Fish sticks became part of the school lunch menu shortly after their commercial introduction in the 1950s. Made from white fish like cod or pollock, these sticks are cut into manageable pieces, breaded and then deep-fried or baked to create a crispy exterior with a tender and flaky interior. This preparation method not only makes fish sticks easy to eat, but also appealing to the palates of young students, who may otherwise be reluctant to consume fish. The breading, often seasoned with spices and herbs, adds a savory flavor that complements the mild taste of the fish, making it a popular choice in school cafeterias. Fish sticks are typically served with tartar sauce or ketchup and a side of vegetables, providing a balanced meal with proteins, carbs, and vitamins. Their ease of preparation, including the ability to cook them from frozen, aligns well with the needs of large-scale meal production typical in schools. Cowboy stew is a robust concoction traditionally associated with the outdoor cooking of American cattle herders. This dish typically includes a base of ground beef or other meat, combined with a hearty blend of potatoes, onions, beans, corn, and tomatoes, stewed in a richly seasoned broth. The stew's origins are rooted in the practical needs of cowboys during cattle drives across the American West, requiring meals that could be cooked in a single pot over an open fire. Cowboy stew's durability and popularity among outdoor workers underscore its role in the folklore of the American frontier. The recipe's evolution over time incorporated local and available ingredients, showcasing the stew's flexibility and the improvisational skills of those who made it. Duck à l'orange marries the deep, rich flavors of duck with the sharp zestiness of oranges, a culinary duo dating back to the Renaissance, though it gained popularity in Paris in the early 20th century. This classic dish features roasted duck with a skin crisped to perfection, paired with a sweet and tangy orange sauce made from fresh orange juice, sugar, vinegar, and sometimes Grand Marnier. To perfect duck à l'orange, meticulous attention is paid to rendering the fat from the duck skin, ensuring it crisps up beautifully to contrast with the juicy meat beneath. The sauce is usually prepared separately and reduced to a luscious syrup, then drizzled over the duck just before serving to preserve its bold, vibrant flavors. This dish masterfully balances the rich, natural fat of the duck with the bright, acidic notes of citrus, showcasing refined culinary techniques. Okay, if you have a light stomach, this next one's not for you. Chicken feet. You heard that right? Now, we're getting into some real survival food territory. Chicken feet might sound like a strange choice for a meal, but in many cultures, they're considered a delicacy. These little feet are often used to make rich, flavorful broths and soups. The high collagen content gives the broth a silky texture that's perfect for sipping on a cold day. However, chicken feet aren't exactly the most popular menu item in the West, or at least anymore. They were big back when people had to eat whatever they could find, like the tough days of the Great Depression. But in today's modern world, chicken feet are a big no thank you. They're a bit bony and can be a challenge to eat, which might be why they haven't caught on like, say, chicken wings. But for those in the know, they're a tasty, nutrient-rich part of the chicken that's worth trying at least once. Just don't expect to see them in your local fast food chain anytime soon. Sole Meunière is an exemplary dish that highlights the inherent flavors of its primary ingredient through a simple yet precise preparation method. This dish involves a sole fillet, lightly dusted with flour, then pan-fried in butter to a perfect golden brown. After cooking, the fillet is enhanced with a sauce of the pan's browned butter, fresh lemon juice, and chopped parsley, drizzled over the fish to amplify its delicate, sweet taste. The freshness and quality of the sole are crucial. Ideally, the fish is prepared soon after being caught, underscoring the importance of ingredient freshness in French culinary arts. The preparation focuses on preserving the fish's natural flavors, complemented subtly by the nutty browned butter and the bright lemon juice. Choosing sole, a flatfish valued for its fine texture and mild flavor, is vital as it cooks quickly and uniformly, making sole Meunière a revered dish for its elegant simplicity. American chop suey is a comfort food classic that has found a niche in American school cafeterias, combining practicality with palatability. This dish melds ground beef, elbow macaroni, and a tomato-based sauce seasoned with onions and bell peppers, all simmered together to allow the flavors to fully integrate. The preparation begins with sautéing onions and bell peppers until they are soft, adding the ground beef to brown, and then incorporating the cooked macaroni and tomato sauce. This mixture is seasoned with herbs such as oregano or basil, and sometimes a dash of Worcestershire sauce for deeper flavor complexity. American chop suey is particularly valued in school settings for its ability to be made in large volumes economically, using ingredients that are staples in most school kitchens. It's also well suited for holding and serving over extended periods, which is essential in a busy cafeteria environment. So, cornmeal mush was the humble, comforting porridge made from, surprise, cornmeal. It became all the rage in the eastern and southeastern United States, and people in the Midwestern states ate it with maple syrup or molasses. In Eastern Europe, milk was poured over the meal once served and cooled down, rather than being boiled in it. Imagine a bowl of yellow, gluey goop that your grandma would call comfort food. Don't get me wrong, I love a good, hearty bowl of oatmeal, but cornmeal mush? That's a whole different level of bland. Apparently, people used to fry it up for breakfast. I guess it's a way to add some crunch to your mushy morning meal. This dish was a staple in many households during hard times because it was cheap, filling, and versatile. However, in today's world of avocado toast and acai bowls, cornmeal mush just doesn't stand a chance. Zucchini Panzanella salad, an adaptation of the classic Italian bread salad, began to capture the attention of American food enthusiasts in the late 1990s. This version introduces zucchini and robust Italian bread, grilled to perfection, tossed with ripe tomatoes, red onions, and fresh basil, all dressed in a balsamic vinaigrette. The innovation lies not just in the ingredients, but in the method of preparation that emphasizes the grilling of vegetables and bread to enhance their flavors before combining them with the dressing. This approach not only maximizes the textures and flavors, but also aligns with a growing preference for grilled foods. The salad's popularity grew as it became synonymous with summer dining, often featured in outdoor meals and barbecues where a light yet satisfying dish was required. Cornish game hen, a petite and elegant poultry choice, typically weighs no more than 2 pounds and is ideal for serving as an individual portion, making it perfect for an upscale dinner. These hens are usually roasted whole, seasoned lightly with herbs like thyme and sage, and basted in butter to achieve a crispy, golden skin while keeping the meat juicy and tender. The cavity may be stuffed with a flavorful blend of breadcrumbs, chopped vegetables, and herbs, enriching the meat during cooking. The cooking process often involves high-temperature roasting to crisp the skin, followed by a resting period before serving to ensure the meat remains moist. Serving Cornish game hens on a bed of wild rice or alongside roasted vegetables allows their delicate flavors to shine, making them a favored choice for intimate dining and special occasions due to their ideal portion size and visually appealing presentation. Pot liquor is the savory, nutrient-rich liquid left over after boiling greens like collards, kale, or mustard greens. This flavorful broth was often sopped up with cornbread or drank straight from the bowl. It's packed with vitamins and minerals, making it a staple in many Southern households. In a world obsessed with bone broth and kale smoothies, you'd think pot liquor would be all the rage. But for some reason, it hasn't quite made the leap to the mainstream. Maybe it's the name, or maybe it's just too old-fashioned for today's palate. Either way, pot liquor is a delicious, nutritious throwback to a time when people didn't let anything go to waste. It's a dish that deserves a comeback, even if just for its health benefits. Creamed corn is prepared by cooking sweet corn kernels until tender and then mixing them with a creamy sauce made from milk, butter, and a thickener such as flour or cornstarch. Seasoned lightly, usually with salt and pepper, and sometimes enhanced with sugar to bring out the natural sweetness of the corn, creamed corn is a favorite in school cafeterias for its smooth, slightly sweet flavor profile that appeals to young eaters. This dish serves as an excellent way to incorporate vegetables into students' diets in a form that is generally more palatable to children who may be picky eaters. Its popularity in schools is reinforced by its nutritional content, offering a good source of fiber and vitamins while being gentle on young stomachs. Creamed corn's ability to be kept warm in serving trays without losing texture or flavor makes it particularly suited to the cafeteria setting, where dishes need to remain appealing throughout the serving period. Bacon cheddar potato skins epitomize the fusion of simple ingredients into a beloved American bar snack. This dish, which emerged prominently in the culinary scene during the 1970s, utilizes russet potatoes known for their thick skin and starchy content, making them ideal for baking and frying. The preparation involves halving the potatoes and scooping out most of the flesh, leaving about a 1/4 inch attached to the skin. The hollowed-out skins are then baked or deep-fried until crisp and golden. Once crisped, these skins are stuffed with generous amounts of sharp cheddar cheese and crisp, crumbled bacon. The cheddar is chosen for its melting properties and strong flavor, which pairs well with the smoky bacon. The filled skins are then returned to the oven until the cheese melts into a bubbly, golden pool. The dish's widespread popularity helped elevate the status of the potato from a simple side dish to a featured player in the culinary world. That wraps up which food defined class back in the 1970s. Which food stood out to you the most? Let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.